Welcome to the Saga of the Clone Saga podcast presented by the students of S.H.I.E.L.D. We're reading and talking about the entire infamous 1990s Spider-Man Clone Saga. My name is Vincent Faust, and with me I have two wonderful gentlemen who will introduce themselves now.
I'm Matt.
And I'm Mike, and your sponsor this week is going to be the Associated Press Style Guide 2017 version. If you always want to be official and on point, follow your style guide. Don't be a dingus and get things wrong.
Very wise advice. Associated Press, a distinguished entity. So in this episode, we are finally getting to Amazing Spider-Man 400, which was supposed to be the climax of the Clone Saga. It definitely is not. We've got a long ways to go, but it does have mostly one major development. And so the cover here, what do you guys think about the cover?
It's pretty simple.
Yeah,
I'm not really wowed by it. For a huge monumental issue like 400, I feel like you'd expect something bigger.
Yeah.
I mean, it is iconic, but like it was going to be iconic anyways. But like it's fine.
I mean, it's serviceable. It's fine.
Yeah, it's a gravestone with a swinging Spider-Man and the title of the book on it, and it also has a little caption title, "A Death in the Family," which obviously one can draw comparisons to the Batman story of the same name, but the actual name of the story in the book is The Gift, which we'll get to in a second. You guys may have seen it online or in person, hopefully in person at some point, but there's also a variant cover which has the entire gravestone in like this white like material that's above the rest of the comic, and all the markings are embossed, and it's pretty terrible because it just like doesn't totally work because it's all white just with the embossing, so you can't fully read it, you can't figure out what's on it. And it really doesn't work. And especially like the problem with all these gimmick covers, these variants from the 90s, is like half of them, when you eventually scan them to read them digitally or just to look at the covers online, they never show up correct.
No.
Especially something like this where it's embossed. Like if you looked up this variant cover online, it's just like a white cover with nothing.
That garbage variant is my mental image, like the perfect symbol of 90s terrible variant covers. I don't think it's much worse than that.
The Fantastic Four 400 issue I gave Vince is pretty bad. It's like platinum, like silver and shiny, and like you can barely read that it's Fantastic Four on it.
Allegedly, I wouldn't even know how I would like particularly check this, but I believe this may have actually been the first gimmick cover for the Spider-Man titles.
Really?
Yeah, and at this point we're like mid 1995, so it was kind of surprising. But I'm not sure that I could really think of another one before this. And there will be a few upcoming as well. But obviously by this point, X-Men has probably had maybe a dozen or something.
Yeah.
And I believe maybe some of the like Midnight Sun stuff, I'm not sure the exact timeline, but some of that stuff might have been happening at this point, and like the Wolverine die cut cover and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
So with the Spider-Man family, they kind of shit the bed at first at bat.
Well, I have no problem with that.
So this is the Hallmark number 400.
Yes.
And at this point, but it's not it's an elite group, but it's not super special. So by this point, April 1995, Action Comics, Detective Comics, Adventure Comics, Superman, Batman, Captain America, Thor, Sergeant Rock, and one or two of Archie's titles had already gotten to 400. And Fantastic Four, I believe, comes out the very next month.
Okay.
The book that Mike was just referring to. But it is still, it's a big milestone. And this is also the last continuous centennial mark for Amazing Spider-Man, because it's soon to get renumbered. Well, not soon, in a few years. But then through more renumberings and increased shipping, I believe Amazing Spider-Man today is only behind Action and Detective in terms of getting real deep into the numbers.
Are we near Amazing Spider-Man? 800?
Yeah, 800 is next month or the month after.
Yeah, so it'll be 200 issues behind Action because in April Action goes to 1,000, and anyone with simple math of just knowing the character first appearances that knows that Spider-Man hasn't been around as long as Superman has. So
not quite.
So Marvel kind of cheats because when ASM was doing 3 issues a month, that highly inflated the numbers very quickly.
Yeah, and even beyond the Brand New Day triple shipping era, I think probably for the past 8 years, it's been shipping 18 books a year.
And those numbers include Superior Spider-Man, which I don't think they should. But...
No, it shouldn't. That's a totally separate book.
Yeah.
It's not even a case like where it's like Journey into Mystery becomes Thor. It's a totally different book.
Yep.
If we were to give a shout out to a book that's nearing a milestone issue, my boy Daredevil's getting to 600 pretty soon. So that one's going to be cool because, hey, that one actually kind of is true. Though they're going to have the renumberings.
I didn't realize that was actually coming up.
Yep.
Wait. Spider-Man is What is Deadpool getting to? Isn't it 300?
Something like that.
300. Yeah, Deadpool 300 also around the corner.
Well, keep in mind the math on Daredevil is even more complicated because for like 2 stints in its history, it was bi-monthly for a little bit.
Yeah.
Huh.
And Deadpool is like 5 times monthly. So moving into the actual issue we're talking about today.
Right.
The story is written by DeMatteis and it's drawn by Mark Bagley, which the two of them definitely the A team on the Spider-Man books at this point, but also, I mean, they're also the team on Amazing Spider-Man. It's not like they were moving or anything around. And we get a dedication to Stan Lee, Steve Ditko, and John Romita.
Yeah, that's nice.
Why? I just want to know what, like, I'm a huge, big John Romita senior and junior fan. I just want to know why he got a shout out over some other people.
I don't know necessarily over other people. Like, he makes sense more than other people. Like, they're looking more to like the beginnings. But it was interesting that you could argue that it's interesting that he got the shout out at all.
Yeah, that's more my thing of like it totally makes sense to have Stan and Steve in there, but it feels like almost John Senior's kind of tacked on.
Yeah. I don't know. Those first like 80 issues or so, kind of all the same arc. And so
yeah, I think that outside of Lee and Ditko, no one put as much effort into defining Spider-Man as Romita. So it kind of makes sense, but I had the same initial thought.
So Pete is swinging to the hospital, and we get narration about his eternal hope, how he always gets up when he's down, and so does his aunt, who's finally out of a coma, which we've seen her in for like the past 30 issues or whatever.
The whole time we've been doing this damn podcast.
I love this opening page spread. I love this panel layout. Bagley is so good with this opening page.
Yeah.
Really good. I like it a lot, yeah.
Yeah, he does some nice like kind of like curved layouts and stuff, and moves kind of.
They look like some Neil Adams early Deadman layouts.
Yeah, but at the same time, like if you look at it really quickly, you can hardly even tell the differences, like the separation between the panels. So it also looks like a splash page.
Right.
And I continue to enjoy Bagley's Spider-Man at this point in time because it has that cartoony feel that we're used to from Ultimate, but it still looks like a regular comic book. I'm not using the precise words that I should, but like, it doesn't have that really cartoony look where it's like Peter Parker with the foppish hair and all the like particularly odd and anatomy and stuff like that.
I think the other thing you're looking for is Ultimate has that like has that early digital coloring and inking. It has, and there's like a weird like shine to the Ultimate books. It doesn't have that.
Yeah.
Also, just while we're talking Bagley's art, you know how Bagley does the thing with Peter's nose in the profile shots when he has the mask on, where it's like his nose kind of points out within the mask. He doesn't do it with Ben Reilly, which is kind of weird, but like it's kind of interesting that the two characters have different profiles. But in some of the, or maybe it was just this issue, but like in there later on, the two of them are in costume together and they're speaking. And
there's I'm looking at it right now. He does it. He does it on Ben. It's when he's looking. It's when he's like standing up in the rain before he leaps off the hospital. You can see it.
So Anne May is awake and seems to be well, and she wants to go home in spite of the doctor very strongly protesting against that.
Yeah, the doctor makes it clear you can't leave. You know, you'll die. You're gonna die. She's like, nah, I'm good. Be home.
And Ben Reilly is creeping outside the window, and we get some more angst. So we've not quite escaped that. I don't think we ever really will.
This guy keeps showing up. In this issue, just keeps popping back up. I finally think he's gone. No, he's back again. It's more Ben Reilly.
But he questions
for a split second though.
He questions whether there's any real reason for him to stay in New York now that May's up and awake and seems to be fine, because that was his motivation for coming in the first place, was that he heard she was in the hospital.
Mm-hmm.
And we get a full page interlude with the Jackal, which like didn't really have a reason to be in this book at all.
Nope.
He's in Ravencroft, whatever.
And he's like pretending to be crazy or something. It doesn't matter.
Is it just me, or whenever we go to Ravencroft, I don't care at all?
Yep.
But yeah, we don't even get to see John Jameson. I want to see more Manwolf, who is apparently a guard, but we haven't seen him since that first time, whatever.
Right.
And May immediately figures out that MJ is pregnant and congratulates them.
Yeah, with her womanly instincts or something.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's kind of weird, but like also like that's kind of a thing, whatever. And she points out that there is no greater responsibility, bolded, than raising a child.
Yep.
Which, I mean, I don't think it's really like Marvel. That wasn't Marvel's argument. Like we'll see as we go along that they keep emphasizing that, but it's more about like how you go about that responsibility, which is where the disagreement comes up.
Right.
And then Ben shows up to the house, and why does he change into his costume?
Because he doesn't want people to know that the way I took it is that if Aunt May sees him talking to Scarlet Spider, she'll freak out because she doesn't like Spider-Man, and also that if he's outside, he doesn't want Peter Parker to be seen talking to Scarlet Spider.
Right. So naturally, it makes more sense.
He takes pictures of Spider-Man for a living.
But it's still Spider-Man in Peter Parker's backyard.
Yeah.
Without Peter Parker.
Like it I guess makes more sense for Spider-Man be hanging out in Pete's backyard with his friend, the Scarlet Spider, than for Pete to like confront this guy who broke into his house. He just breaks into Pete's house.
Yeah, and I also just find the logistics hilarious. Like Ben shows up in costume inside the house. He breaks in or whatever, sneaks in. Pete is like, "All right, we're gonna talk," and then like I get it. He's Spider-Man. He's been a superhero forever, but like it's got to take him at least 2 minutes to grab his costume and change, and then be like, "All right, Ben, I'll meet you out back in a few minutes."
We're talking about clothes and changing. Can we talk about Peter Parker's weird vest shirt that he's wearing?
Yeah, it's kind of weird.
It looks like it's like he's trying to be like. It looks like he's wearing something that Ray Liotta would be wearing from Goodfellas, but like in a vest.
He just needs to stick to his blazers.
Yes.
So Ben is going to leave based on the reflecting he was doing earlier, and he promises to never see Pete again.
And the Clone Saga's over. This is the end.
It's the last episode, everybody.
That doesn't happen. And Pete questions whether Ben should leave because of all this Jackal nonsense from the past few arcs. But Ben points out, like, it really doesn't matter, which is what we've been saying this whole time. Like, even if Ben is the real one, or if they're both clones, Ben was still off doing whatever for 5 years. So it doesn't, they're still totally different people with different lives. It's not like they can switch lives or anything. And we get, what did you think about this moment between May and MJ? I thought like there were like two lines which were like kind of cringy, but overall it worked for me.
Yeah, overall it's kind of cute.
Yeah, they're like talking about like the importance of like friendships in romantic relationships and things like that.
Yeah.
And then we get some home movies.
And here's what's funny about these. So we have the panel. There's the panel of May saying goodbye to MJ, and it's a close-up on her face, and the next panel is a close-up on her face in relatively the same pose in what's supposed to be a flashback film that MJ and Peter are watching, and she's still old. It doesn't look like she's aged at all. So no. It plays into my theory that Aunt May's just always been old.
Yeah, this flashback has to be at least 20 years ago. But it's not even just her. Uncle Ben also has fully white hair and looks old. Like how much older, I'm sure this was like said somewhere, but like I don't know how much older Ben is supposed to be than Richard. Because he looks at least like 10 years older or something.
Minimum, yeah, for sure.
I want to know this. Maybe it was stated somewhere. Matt, you probably know this. Why did Ben and May never have kids of their own? Could they not have kids of their own?
I don't actually know if that's been addressed. If they did, it's probably in trouble.
Nope. Let's move past that. And I liked they had to bring out the old projector and like tape reels for the home movies.
Yeah, it's like the scene from Christmas Vacation when Clark's watching the movies up in the attic.
It's not just popping in the VHS. And then Pete starts getting philosophical, as MJ points out, questioning the authenticity of memories and the lives and if you have others' memories and all this crap. But
yeah,
then
I guess it's philosophical.
But then Pete tells MJ she's never met Ben, which the last thing we read, and we're going mostly off of Marvel's reading order in their complete epic collected editions.
Yeah.
Ben was sitting without a mask across from MJ at her own dinner table in her
with Venom.
And then came back later and sat on her couch like 3 feet from her I believe he even had he may never had a direct line with her that we saw, but like they clearly must have heard each other speak. They were in collective conversations.
Like he shared beers with Venom on her couch. Yeah. And she's like, I don't know who this
While the world was going to hell.
And I'm going to get back to this at the end, but I don't understand. This continuity is a mess.
Yeah.
It's a mess at this point.
And our favorite note taker is back, Mr. Noct.
Who cares?
He's taking notes for Judas Traveler.
The minute Judas Traveler showed up, I was like, oh god, not this motherfucker.
You just can't tell a story without throwing more Clone Saga stuff in.
This is like another 2 or 3 pages of stuff that shouldn't really be here. And Ben quickly at some point notes that Janine, his girlfriend Janine Godby, or Elizabeth Tyne, whatever her real name is, he says that she's dead, but we didn't
never seen her die.
Yeah, we didn't see that in those flashback sequences, which we've fully read at this point. Mm-hmm. Well, there's a sequel thing later, which maybe it happens there, but we haven't seen that yet. Maybe it's true, maybe it's not. It's not true, but maybe we'll see it alleged to be true. And then we get another full page of stuff that shouldn't be here, with the third clone. And I was confused for a second. I thought this was Ben moping because it's right after packing his bags. But this third clone gets kind of harassed by a cop. But like the cop is definitely being an asshole. But some of it is warranted.
Mm-hmm.
But it was just a pointless sequence.
I hate this. I'm kind of fascinated by the third clone. I really want to know where this is going, and I can't wait for it to be totally disappointing because I'm sure it's going to be.
Yes, that is exactly what's going to happen. So a full week has passed with May being home, and she seems totally fine. They're all taking care of her and watching her. And Pete takes her to the Empire State Building, and we get a classic scene. I'd say it's a classic scene.
I think so. It's only like 3 pages, which is shorter than I thought it was. I haven't actually read this before, but I know about the Empire State Building scene, and this is great. I really like this.
And she pops a question on Peter. She says, "How does it feel swinging over the city?" And she knows that he's been Spider-Man for years. And so apparently the likely marker for when she figured out that Pete was Spider-Man is around Amazing Spider-Man 200, which Matt,
Okay.
you could probably fill this in better than I do, but I believe Spider-Man saves Aunt May, which he's probably saved her a few times before that, but he saves Aunt May around that point. And that's kind of a turning point where she stops doing the whole "I hate Spider-Man" and is like, "Oh, Spider-Man's an all right guy."
Yeah.
And so I guess the implication is like that was her turning point, and then that allowed her to just put the obvious pieces together, where it's like, "Oh, my nephew who lives with me is always trying to be secretive and stuff. He's probably Spider-Man."
Yeah.
Do you like this quote unquote retcon?
Yes, I do actually.
Yeah.
I think it works. It doesn't take away anything from the past stories, and it creates a really nice moment right now. I think I like it.
Yeah, I think it works well. It's the same thing like Jerry Conway, or no, initially Tom DeFalco, and then Jerry Conway added some to it where they revealed that MJ knew that Pete was Spider-Man like way before.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm generally a fan of that too. But maybe it's in Clone Conspiracy, didn't they at some point reveal that Gwen knew that Pete was Spider-Man?
Well, in Clone Conspiracy, it's revealed that she woke up on top of the bridge and she heard Norman say that he was Peter Parker, and so she died hating him because he lied to her and killed her dad.
Rip.
I don't hate this reveal. I just think it was better. I thought it was better in JMS's run.
I think I can agree with that. I think that in JMS's run, I don't know, her reaction feels very human. So I like that.
You have that really good issue where they're just kind of talking it out.
Yeah.
I mean, to be fair, like also, especially like if you read this and then go read that, like I feel like JMS, like he may have probably referred to this because he had the opportunity to basically retell this scene.
Right, without all the Clone Saga crap bogging it down.
Yeah.
I also read JMS's stuff, or most of it, before this, and I really, really love his run, and I think it works better just because, like Matt said, I thought that issue was handled very more in like a more realistic, like human fashion.
I like, honestly, it's something that I like a lot about. I have problems with JMS's run. I think it's
not without its
overrated. But like one thing I really like that he does is he writes Aunt May like she's a real human being.
Yeah, that's always been his strength. The relationship he puts Peter and MJ with always feels more real. His character work's always been solid. Maybe his stories aren't the best, but
Yeah, I think that's the strength. Like most people's complaints with the run is just like the ridiculous plots.
Right. Like, I mean, that issue we were just talking about comes on the tail of Morlun. Morlun sucks.
it does.
So then, right when she reveals this, May has a fever, and so she's got to go home.
Yeah.
And she's gonna die on her terms. And she says that she's led a good and long life, and she got to say all her goodbyes. And so, like, what more can you ask for?
She should have died here.
And Pete says his final goodbye with a quote from Peter Pan, which it works.
It works.
Like if this was a really crappy writer, that could have come off as like some like super awkward like reference, but it actually works here.
It does, yeah. It's pretty sad. And Riley shows up for 2 panels, which is frustrating, but
yeah. I mean, that guy, he deserves to pay his respects too.
Yeah,
I guess.
I don't think it's during.
No, he shows up on his own time. He doesn't show up like crashing the funeral or anything. He's respectful.
Is his head in that splash page through the window? I don't think it is. I don't think we're going to the splash page.
No, it's not.
No, it's not.
And then
it's just Mary Jane and Anna.
On the roof.
He's on the roof though.
And then we get the funeral scene, which I think the whole funeral itself is done pretty well. Like we get pretty much like 5 pages in a row that are silent.
It's very unique for DeMatteis.
Exactly. We don't get the priest or whatever. I don't know how funerals work. We don't get
pointing out the people that are there. I can spot. I'm wondering who the blonde-haired girl is with the kid who's holding a doll of Spider-Man.
That's Liz Allen and Normie Osborn.
Okay.
Harry's son. And
okay.
Normie has a little Spider-Man toy.
Jonah and Marla are there. Robbie's there. Flash is there. Now Matt.
Flash with is that
that's Felicia Hardy.
That's Felicia. Okay.
I don't know why she's there. It's kind of weird. I don't know. I thought that was weird to see Felicia Hardy there, and it also seems like she's like Flash has his arm around her. I'm pretty sure.
Wait, aren't they dating right now?
Oh, are they? I don't even.
Yeah, he has his arm on her shoulder, but
I think they might be. I know they dated at one point.
I just wanted to make sure it wasn't Silver Sable because they kept trying to push her in those 80s and 90s era.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
I don't think she was on terms with like Peter Parker much. But I could be wrong.
Yeah, I more associate Felicia Hardy knowing Peter Parker more from the '90s cartoon than the comics.
Yeah, I know. I mean, he dated Flash for a short while, and it was weird. I thought he mentioned that in the Planet of the Symbiotes, but I could be wrong. I don't remember.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
Oh no, Flash didn't know that.
The gravestone headings leave something to be desired, though.
I mean, Ben's is so classic. Uncle Ben's gravestone says he was loved, and now we know that Maze says she taught us love. And I don't know. I think Ben's is like one of those Spider-Man things where it's like they show that damn gravestone all the damn time. So it becomes iconic, and so it's like
which gravestone in comics history has been shown more, Ben Parker's or Martha and Wayne's?
Definitely
has to be.
I mean, just based on publishing duration, but also I feel like the Ben's death. I don't know, whatever. And then there's and Ben Reilly shows up to the grave and leaves a rose. Also, thankfully, also those pages are also silent. And then there's a little reception in the Parker household, and Jacob Raven from Salt Lake City shows up to arrest Peter Parker for murder.
Everything falls apart.
Which like
such a drastic like tone change that it almost feels like it's a comedy, like of how rapid it changes.
Yeah.
Like I'm not a police officer. But Jacob Raven, we know that he's clearly been looking into this thing for quite a while. He's been piecing it together. He knows that it seems Peter Parker, even from the outside perspective, is not an active threat. So like I feel like you could wait 2 hours. Like just park the cop car right outside the house and just wait for all the guests to leave.
Right, instead of coming in and arresting him in front of all of his friends after his aunt died.
Yeah. But also like they don't highlight anyone's reaction to Peter Parker getting arrested besides MJ.
Yeah.
Like you think like that's definitely a scene where it's like, oh my god, what's happening?
I'm also like still slightly annoyed that MJ isn't drawn as showing that she's carrying a child yet, really.
Yeah.
Like she should have at least a little bit of a bump right now.
I mean that's the thing, like comics time, it's hard to figure out the chronology. But like she's been like it's hinted that she's been pregnant for a while because the entire Pittsburgh thing, she was already pregnant. She didn't fully know.
Yeah, like she should be like maybe a month or two along right now.
I don't know. We're not necessarily, to be fair, we're not necessarily the three people to be talking about how pregnant women look. But MJ can't call Matt Murdock for legal representation.
I got so hyped. I was like, oh yeah, they're gonna call Daredevil and he's gonna get him out. I was like, oh wait, no,
But no, Matt Murdock is dead.
Yeah, I'm like, oh shit, he's dead.
Dead.
I was so like, pumped. I was like, yeah, Daredevil's gonna show up. I'm like, oh no, he's not.
They meant because Matt mentioned that or back when he cameoed in like our 5th episode or something, and he's still dead.
I mean, you have to keep in mind.
I was hoping that was wrapped up by now.
I mean, you have to keep in mind, obviously, that like our reading is so extended because all of the arcs are between 4 titles, so we're only along like 6 months or something. I think the
is that it?
I mean,
no, that's still Matt Murdock was dead for that long.
No, yeah,
not Matt Murdock.
No,
going around in his stupid armor.
Yeah, he has the armor for like over 2 years.
Yeah, it's when Vince told me that I was I was as shocked as you are. Like I didn't know it lasted that long.
I think the armor's from like maybe like 310 or so till like 350 or something.
That's disgusting.
So for like a solid 30 issues. Yeah, and then the end of the issue, Ben breaks into their house again and reveals his face to MJ, and that will continue into next issue and our next episode. So what do you guys think?
My name is Ben Riley. I think it's time we met, but we know they've already met.
Yeah, so this doesn't make sense. MJ meets Ben, but they don't really react to each other in Planet of the Symbiotes, but they clearly meet each other. So maybe Planet of the Symbiotes is after 400, but Planet of the Symbiotes can't be after this because Peter's arrested. So, and do you guys remember if Planet of the Symbiotes had any Aunt May references?
It did not.
I don't think it did. I think you commented on how it didn't.
Yeah. So, sloppy editing. I don't know.
I have before we move on to the supplemental material we also read. With Aunt May's death, because we brought up JMS earlier, do you think her death was better here, or her possible should have been death in JMS's run after he gets shot? Which one do you think was better?
I mean,
I really liked when she got shot. I think if she had died, that would have been great because it's a direct consequence to Pete's dumb actions during Civil War. While this is a lot, I don't know, it's more peaceful and it's a nice little moment.
Yeah.
But Yeah, let's put that guilt on Pete's soul also. He's responsible for both of his parent figures' deaths.
Yeah,
I'm fine with it, but also you froze up on my end, so I don't know what you said.
I think Back in Black is a great arc, and like it flows well from Civil War, and it makes sense once you cross that Civil War point that this would be what happens next. And from that perspective, and especially as someone who's a big fan of the marriage, like I would have been totally fine with Aunt May dying in 2008 or whatever. But at the same time, and this applies to both, I feel like it's just plot points that should have been thought out more and shouldn't have happened. Like Back in Black happens because Pete reveals himself in Civil War, which shouldn't have happened.
No, but it did.
So if that didn't happen, then Aunt may not have possibly gotten to the point where she was going to die. And even at this point, like either scenario, I don't really think Aunt May. I mean, it's tough to say because you want a lot of people want superheroes to evolve a little bit and stuff like that, and change and everything like that. And I'm a fan of that. But at the same time, like I don't know that killing Aunt May in general in any scenario is necessarily a good idea for Spider-Man books.
I think she should be dead now. I don't see why she's still around, especially if I honestly don't know why she's still around.
I mean, she's still a critical part of his supporting cast, even if he's fully married and everything. That's still a thing where, like, oh, you go home and you talk to Aunt May, or he calls up Aunt May and he reminisces with Aunt May on this when this happened or whatever. And when you kill off characters in general, whether it's Aunt May or it's whoever, especially supporting characters, you're cutting off a lot of room for plot points and everything like that.
Sure.
I don't feel like she's done anything really notable to enhance anything really in the 2000s. And if the character's always about growth and change, I felt like it would have been a good stepping stone moment for her to die because it's gonna have to happen eventually.
Although, to be fair, at least recently, at least the past 10 years or so, 5 years or so, Slott has no interest in Pete's supporting cast.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like, I've read stuff from Slott, and he had her get married to what? Jameson's dad?
Jameson's dad.
Yeah, like, great. But that's the only notable thing that's happened with her.
I mean, but yeah, that's on the fault of the writer, not the characters.
No, it is.
But yeah, I would not kill Aunt May in any situation, but both of those situations, once you get to that plot point, then they should have just sold it. I mean, obviously, Back in Black is so attached to One More Day and all that shit, and that's a different scenario. But even here, like this was a good goodbye. This was a satisfactory final goodbye.
Yeah, they're both good. Like you can take either one, and I think you're fine.
Yeah.
So allegedly, Stan Lee was called and asked for his blessing to kill off Aunt May, and he gave it. Maybe he didn't want it to happen, but he gave his blessing. Because he's no longer the writer and everything. He didn't want to be a problem. But then when fans were divided about the story and were like, "No, I hate this," then Stan Lee denied that he ever gave his blessing. Because
so he pulled a Hulk Hogan.
Yeah, Stan Lee doesn't like his fans being mad at him.
I like that they respected enough to call Stan and ask for it. I think that's kind of neat.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's Stan Lee, obviously, that's a different level, but like that's something where in today, Marvel and DC, I feel like they're less prone to do something like that. Like we've heard stories recently where Marvel's doing stuff with Thanos and not talking to Jim Starlin about it. And
so much so that Jim Starlin has left Marvel because of creative differences and has sworn to never go back there.
Yeah, and on the other side of the aisle, I truly think it is Jim Lee's, or not Jim Lee. I think it is DC's, more Jeff Johns, honestly. I think it is their job, their status quo right now is to torture Alan Moore's consciousness as much as they can.
That might be Dan Didio's, not Jeff Johns.
Yeah, they're screwing with Watchmen. They're screwing with Promethea. They're screwing with Tom Strong. They're reprinting weird stuff and not reprinting certain stuff. Like we're getting a before Watchmen omnibus while they cancel his Swamp Thing, which may or may not. That's probably going to be a thing later. But like before Watchmen omnibus in general.
Yeah.
And so I don't know.
Well, we've kind of had an argument about this. Like, the thing is, did he create those characters though? Like the Watchmen characters he created, but like the Swamp Thing characters, he didn't create Swamp Thing. It's not his character.
No, not Swamp Thing. I mean, he created Promethea and Tom.
Yeah, he created Promethea. It's like, but I mean, they do the same things with like Neil Gaiman's characters too.
Yeah, but Neil Gaiman is. I mean, it's a little different. Neil Gaiman doesn't actively want DC not to fuck around, but also DC calls Scott Snyder had to call Neil, or he didn't necessarily have to, but Scott Snyder asked Neil Gaiman, "Can I use Death in Metal?" And Gaiman was like, "Yeah." DC
No,
is not calling out.
Death. He used Dream, didn't he? He didn't use Death.
Yeah, Dream.
But Paul Cornell used Death in his Action Comics run, though.
Yeah, which he had to ask Gaiman.
Yes,
not had to. I don't know how exactly, because some of them work like that.
Own the copyright on, like he owns shit for them or something.
No, it's just there are some like contracts that are kind of weird. Like James Robinson has a deal with Sandman. Not Sandman. James Robinson has a deal with Starman, where it's like no one is supposed to use the character but him. And I guess if you asked him, and he'd be like, "Sure, maybe you can use it." And I think that's the deal with Gaiman and the End List. Is you're supposed to ask him. If DC really wanted to do it, they can probably do it. But that's enough of that.
I mean, okay, yeah, go ahead.
So now getting into a few little supplemental things for Amazing Spider-Man 400. First, we have this short story, The Cycle of Life, which was not actually in Amazing Spider-Man 400. This issue was in the Spectacular Spider-Man Super Special, which was one of the Planet of the Symbiote issues, which further confuses things. So I probably should have double checked, but I believe my guess is that these stories were basically published at the same time, or like pretty much on top of each other. Yes. But that doesn't really explain anything. And while we were talking about Stan Lee writes this issue, and it's drawn by Derek Robertson with George Perez inking it.
It certainly has the Perez inking feel. That's
and like maybe this was a big deal, maybe not. For years, basically Marvel would pull back Stan Lee to do like little short stories for Spider-Man every once in a while. Like during Brand New Day, he did like some backup feature for a few issues.
Didn't he write something for 600 or 700 or something?
Yeah. Not super recently, though. Allegedly, Stan Lee still scripts the Spider-Man comic strip to this day, but I highly doubt that. There's no way. That shit is definitely ghost written by like some like 30-year-old intern or something.
Yeah.
And so this story's kind of weird. Pete and MJ, I guess they're revisiting the grave later, like a day or two later.
I guess.
And they get mugged by these two guys, and Pete crushes the guy's pistol in his hand, and it's like kind of funny / interesting, whatever. Like basically, Pete's having a conversation with MJ, and just keeps having the conversation, and mostly just ignores these muggers.
He's got no time for this.
It's tonally very weird. I don't know.
It's very weird.
I don't really know what they're going for with this.
Yeah, it's like he's not really trying to be like you could play it off like if in a different scenario, this could be him like being an asshole, like not giving these guys his time of day. Not really an asshole because they're mugging him.
Yeah.
But it would be like that, like better, like higher than thou. Like I'm not gonna pay you attention. But he's also like at Aunt May's grave. I don't know. It's kind of weird. And then we get a transition into a flashback of young Peter, and I thought this transition was really awkward. Like he pulls out a photo of like Aunt May in his wallet, and it's just like this super forced dialogue, and he's telling this story to MJ. Matt, what do you think about Derek Robertson / George Perez's young Peter Parker? I don't like it at all.
That's terrible.
I hate it. I hate it.
What's going on with his hair? I don't know. I don't like it at all.
It's so weird. Like, he has a fat, chubby face, but at the same time, this weird, skinny body.
Yeah.
And he's got like this weird, like close cropped buzz cut kind of hair, which I don't know.
The hair's terrible.
I thought he was like 9, but Flash looks 20. So I don't know. I don't know what this is.
Also,
Flash looks like he's a senior in high school, and Peter looks like he's in 6th grade.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we get some bullying, and Pete exclaims that maybe I can't be a jock, but I'll be something someday. And did you notice what book he's reading? He's reading a book about the physics of adhesive substances.
I saw James and the Giant Peach.
Yeah, he has like a collection of books, but then they should have shown Peter Pan, and it might be there. I'm not going to check, but
it's not. I'm looking at it right now. Beowulf, James and the Giant Peach, The Cat and the Dog, and then the other two you can't see the titles.
Go to the panel
The dog.
Where he's studying though, and he says maybe I can't be a jock.
No, it's just the physics of adhesive substances.
Yeah, which is hilarious. It's so stupid.
So I guess Lee still has not learned about science.
And so then another bullying scene, which I thought this was kind of over the top.
This is something like out of a Batman comic. This is not something out of a Spider-Man comic.
I hate this so much. Is this Flash?
It's so out of character.
Flash spoils Aunt May's groceries by like swiping them with water, like with his bike. And like I don't even like Flash. Like I get Flash as a bully, but I think this is way over the top. And especially like bullying,
so overly malicious that like it's not even in the realm of reality.
Yeah, unless you're like totally just like a born asshole, like are you gonna mess with this kid while he's with his elderly aunt carrying groceries in the rain?
No bully's gonna mess with the kid when they're with an adult figure.
Right. Like this isn't Flash. Like honestly, I don't think it's him.
And then Pete runs after them and like fights like 5 of these larger.
Yeah, he does his best Batman impression where he's trying to take on as many guys as possible.
Yeah, in the rain and yelling, "I'll take you all on! Don't run away!" But then, like, I was like, all right, Stan Lee is writing this. I can deal with that. And then this final page, Stan Lee just decided to like hit the gas and go like with all of his over the top ridiculous writing. And I'm like, am I reading Spider-Man or Silver Surfer now? Peter Parker's talking about like all that matters is love eternal, and he's like saying these like half philosophical but meaningless statements, and MJ gets in on it too, where she's like they're like completing each other's sentences. It was so weird.
It's bad.
Very weird.
Bad.
It's a pretty bad story, but like also at the same time, I'm like, there was like one scene, like I don't know.
No. Like I don't. It's Stan.
I just respect the idea of like let's bring Stan back to do this little 8-page story.
Yeah, that's
like,
nice.
It sucked, but
Stan can't. He's like he can't be writing anymore.
But we're not done with Stan because there's a little second epilogue, which is actually in Amazing Spider-Man, and this story is called The Morning After. And Stan Lee's still scripting, but DeMatteis handles the plot, which I feel like it should be the other way around.
It should be.
We got Al Milgrom on inks this time around, though.
Al Milgrom on inks, but Tom Grummett on pencils. And Tom Grummett is similar to his fellow Tom and Clone Saga contributor Tom Lyle in that he's most known for his work at DC on Robin. And he also drew a lot of other DC stuff like Adventures of Superman, including during the Death of Superman arc, which I think we've seen some other Death of Superman kind of parallel or connections here, like creatively, and we'll see.
Listen, when Dan Jurgens starts showing up, there's going to be really there.
Yeah, there will be a major one later. Grumman also drew New Titans during the Titans Hunt and Total Chaos era, and some Superboy, and really his only other his known Marvel book would be Thunderbolts around the time of Civil War.
Was that the Thunderbolts with was that when Baron Zemo's like Citizen V and shit?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So this is a retelling of when Uncle Ben died, and we see Aunt May dealing with her grief and her initial reaction to Spider-Man, like what we were talking about. And I don't know, this is kind of fun.
She looks older. She looks older in the past than she did in the present.
The conclusion here is just underlining the fact that May knew that Peter was Spider-Man, and she was proud of it eventually, and now she's dead.
This dialogue is terrible.
It's bad. The art saves it a little bit, but I think that's more because of Milgram's inks than Grummet's pencils. But I like Tom Grummett because I've seen his Superman stuff. It's pretty good.
Like, why is Aunt May saying to her 15-year-old nephew, you know, I'm going to go to my room and then shut my eyes, but I don't know if I'll ever sleep again. What is this? Why are you saying this to him?
That's
There's
like
a panel where though she looks like the Wicked Witch of the West, though.
That conversation should be reversed. Like that's something the 15-year-old would say when they lose their father figure.
Yeah.
But Grummett and Milgram's Peter Parker is way better than Robinson's. This is like how I actually expect him to look in flashback.
Yeah. He's got the big round glasses too.
Yeah, he's got the Ditko appearance. Granted, like I mean, these are two different points in his life, but it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
So that's pretty much the death of Aunt May. Do you guys have any final thoughts?
I thought the death was handled really well. I think you completely devalue it by bringing her back, but as we know, it really wasn't the real Aunt May anyway, so the whole thing just kind of doesn't work, just kind of feels flat, and I felt that as I was reading it. It was hard for me to like put in my mind like, oh, it's Aunt May dying, because I know it's not Aunt May dying. Overall, it's all right. I thought for a 400th issue, I thought this thing had more hype than what it really delivered. But it was all right.
Yeah, I think some of it was really good and some of it was really bad. So overall, it's better than most of what we've been reading.
Yeah, pretty much. We mentioned it as we were going along, but there were like 5 pages that you totally could have cut out, having to do with Clone Saga subplots, which we know we're gonna get back to them. You don't have to necessarily put them in the milestone issue, in the issue that has this major moment. And that space could have allowed DeMatteis to actually expand some of those emotional scenes more. But overall, I mean, it's a nice issue. It's like one of the few highlights of the Clone Saga, but at the same time, you can't escape that it's part of the Clone Saga.
Right. Well, I mean, I think that's part of the reason why it's so highly regarded, honestly. Because imagine reading Spider-Man at this point. You're in 95, and you're waiting through all this Clone Saga shit, and then finally you have like 6 good pages of an actual story.
Yeah,
that's gonna blow your mind.
It gets to this point where, well, might maybe piss people off what I'm gonna say here, but it gets to that thing where you've read so much shit that the average is gonna seem amazing. Kind of how I view the Wonder Woman movie, where I think Wonder Woman was just average because everything before it was shit.
Good. So thanks for watching. Tune in next time. Next time we're gonna get back to that shit.
Well, before we leave, I'm looking. I always like to tease what's coming next. Is the next batch of issues are we getting to Spider-Man 57?
Yep.
I'm looking at the credits page right now. I see John Romita Jr., but I also see the writer Howard Mackie. Is this the first appearance of Howard Mackie?
No, I think he's been one of the ongoing writers. He might have switched books.
I couldn't remember if he has or not.
Yeah. All right, so tune into that. Thanks for watching. Bye.